Hey everyone, this is Scott from Trujay, and today we are talking about everything Salesforce to HubSpot. We're not going into the strategy or consultation, how to set up automations in HubSpot. That's not the kind of stuff we're talking about. We're talking about the Salesforce database and moving it to HubSpot. Now, there are many different paths in which you can do so. Some are free, some are offered by the vendors. And then they have limitations as well. So we really want to talk about all those different paths. What are some of the best practices, data cleansing, things that you can do to prepare for making the move, and hopefully you can find a lot of value within the video. I am going to create some chapters with the video, so you can always look back if you have to navigate to a certain section and you want to go through it on your own. Feel free to do so. But I'm going to hop right into this and talk about what we're going to cover today. So everything you need to know, we want to cover the different paths for completing migration and conversion, the limitations, and the limitations was really kind of the main driver of me wanting to create this video. Because oftentimes we will see messes that have occurred after the fact, where they have used something that was a free and they only migrated some of the data and then the other data is left behind and they have to go hire somebody to go get the rest of the data, but it's been updating on both sides and it can become quite a mess and wreak havoc for your company and for your team. So want to prevent that at all costs. So hopefully this video can create some awareness around that and there's better review before deciding which path you want to take. Costs and timeline, what objects are included within these individual paths, and then if Salesforce is coming to a cutoff date or it's going to shut off soon, some of the different options that you have there. And then data cleansing best practices ahead of start date, some good for you to knows. All right. So different paths for migration. HubSpot does have a native import tool where you can use CSV files and you can upload contacts, companies. You can also upload, they were opportunities, but they will be deals inside of HubSpot. Cases are what they were called in Salesforce. They will be tickets inside of HubSpot. There's a little asterisk next to deals because the deal can only have one relationship to a company. It can't have multiple relationships. So if you have anything it's a little bit more complex in that area, this is not going to be a good fit for you. Also, if you have parent-child relationships or any of that hierarchy, this is not going to be a good fit either. And these are the only objects that you can do the HubSpot native import tool with. So the timeline is your own. You can do it in a night. You can do it over a week. It's up to you. And this is free. So that's one way to get there. Next is the Salesforce to HubSpot connector. There is a native integration between HubSpot and Salesforce, and you can sync those two. And however, you probably don't want an ongoing sync. And so because they have that, naturally they have a connector for you just to migrate your data over. And this is also free. And according to your own timeline, you make up your own rules there. However, these are the only objects that are available through that connector. And very important for you to know, contacts, leads, accounts, opportunities, cases, and then tasks. And most of you, if you're familiar with Salesforce, you know that tasks in Salesforce is sort of a parent object to task calls and task emails. Sales emails are outside of this object, so that's a very good thing to know. And other items like notes and different activities are outside of this task object as well. So if this is all you need from Salesforce to HubSpot, for sure, go for it. However, if your teams need more, like attachments and notes and products and line items and quote line items, there's a lot more, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. You're not going to want to use this and then go to someone else to sync up the rest of that data, because time has started to fill the gap between those two, and data is changing and fields are changing and data is being purged and created and updated. So try to avoid a partial migration at all costs. So that is my a strong recommendation. And then last, we have ourselves who we have our own tools for migration, and we have within our company 3 different ways that you can migrate yourself. Now, this is just us, Trujay, but all HubSpot partners in the ecosystem have vast knowledge on Salesforce to HubSpot. They all have their different ways in which way and how they can help you get from Salesforce to HubSpot. Some have their own dev resources, some use integration tools. And I'm just talking about us specifically because we have our own migration tool that we've built specifically for this conversion. So the 3 different options, which I'll get into, are you can do it yourself using our wizard. Second is you can use our wizard and have guided support, meaning someone will hop on with you and they'll do the wizard with you. And then the third is you don't want anything to do with the project and you just want Trujay to do it for you. And we call that a custom migration here at Trujay. All right. So when I was talking about earlier, all of those other objects in Salesforce that your teams might need, I highly recommend that if you're spearheading this project from Salesforce to HubSpot, you are aligned with all of the users of the tools to make sure that you are bringing over everything that they need. Again, you do not want to bring over some data and then have to go to someone to try to pay for them to bring over the rest of the data and actually have to fix a little bit of a mess that's probably occurred. It just really depends on how much time has gone by and how much configuration has happened. So really want to avoid that as much as possible. And so it's really good to get a layout of all of the objects and present them internally, and definitely highlight which ones are a must-have, and go ahead and mark an X for which ones you most certainly do not want. But as you can see, there are a number of objects in Salesforce: attachments, contracts, comments, products, post comments, campaigns, chatter activity. There's just quite a bit there. And you just want to make sure you don't leave any of that behind. Now, custom objects, Salesforce is a little bit unique in that they have all of these what they call custom objects. And really, a lot of it is just almost 98% of it is administrative data for the system. None of that is CRM data that anybody wants to move over. However, if you have built a custom object inside of Salesforce specific to your process, like maybe you have partners or you have affiliates, or maybe you have some type of event registration and it has relationships to contacts or accounts or opportunities, that's something that's been built, and that might be data that you do want to bring over to HubSpot. And if you want us to look at it, we would look within that bucket of all that administrative data, all those custom objects. We would need to know the name of the custom object. We would take a look at it, and then we would come to the conversation and say, where do you want this to move to? And there are many options. We can actually move it into a custom object inside of HubSpot. We can break it up into fields on a contact record or a company record, or we can put it into another object like tasks or notes or something along those lines. All right, so 3 paths to migrate by leveraging Trujay. First is the do-it-yourself wizard. We have an app online. It's connected to Salesforce, HubSpot. It's connected to most of the standard objects that are available in Salesforce. And you can do this yourself. We recommend this for smaller to mid-sized businesses. There's not a lot of transformation that has happened. So you're really more or less looking for a mirror of what Salesforce was and pushing into HubSpot. If there's a lot of design, customization, you've consolidated a lot of pipelines, stuff like that, the wizard might not be a good fit for you, and you might want to consider, working with a partner to set that up, or getting a custom migration. Data filtering, data merging, These are not customizations that are available with the wizard. However, the wizard will be the lowest cost to migrate the entire data set over, and it will be the quickest turnaround. Because again, it is up to you and how much time and involvement you have. You can most certainly get it done within a day or two, or even a week. It's entirely up to you. Now, sticking with the wizard, we also have what we call a guided wizard migration. And this is just where one of our CSMs will hop on with you and they will do the wizard with you. So they'll do the mapping with you. If you have any kind of advanced mappings, you need to change things around, they can guide you through that. And they'll just make sure it goes smoothly and goes off without a hitch. They will do the validation of the test results. They'll check that for you. They'll do QA with you. And what that looks like is 5 hours of their time, and that will come on top of whatever the wizard cost is. So they'll charge an hourly rate there. So typically it's like $750 on top of what the wizard costs are. And finally, we have a custom migration, and this is just where it's Trujay, do it for me. And that is, you'll have a dedicated CSM, they have a project plan, there's going to be a kickoff, you're going to confirm all the data, all the criteria, all the objects. They're going to do the mapping for you. And they are basically a liaison in between you and the tech engineer team working behind. And so data merging, custom objects, any of that stuff, anything and everything you can think of, millions of records, whatever it might be, these are all a good fit for a custom migration. Okay, so oftentimes we're running into a Salesforce expiration. Sometimes we get the call a little bit too late. That's okay. That's the reason I'm trying to make this video, is to create awareness and kind of stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the schedule. We don't ever want anybody to have to pay for two CRMs at the same time, obviously, but the more love and buffer you can give it, the better and more just mutually pleasant it is for all parties involved. So we recommend at the very least 2 weeks of overlap between the source and the target, and in this instance, that's Salesforce and HubSpot. And we really want for you, when you know what the migration end date is or whatever a partner has told you, yes, will be completed by this date, please add some buffer. There's just delays and response time. You're busy, you're running a business, the CRM conversion's not at the top of your head every day. So we've just seen there can be delays that come up. You'll be working hard on the migration and mapping, and one of your colleagues will walk in the room and want to change everything. So there's just a number of different reasons why things can get delayed and redesigned. So please give some buffer as much as possible. And always go ahead and add to your schedule whenever that Salesforce cutoff date is. You've given the 30 days notice to Salesforce. Go ahead and mark your schedule for maybe you and another and get a backup done. Trujay, if you worked with us, we do create a backup ourselves, and it's just one that we don't touch just to make sure that we have, but we highly recommend for you to do this for yourself as well. And even if you work with any other partners, please do so. And then in some of those cases that are a little bit more extreme, like Salesforce is shutting off really quick and we're really nervous on what's going to happen, you have a couple options that we start relaying to you right away. One is you can request from Salesforce for one user license to stay on, and you can leave that one user license on for a month or 2 months. Ask them what kind of leniency they'll give you there. Another option is you can request Salesforce to say no one will be working inside of Salesforce, but just to leave your instance read only, which means any integrator will still have access to all the data through the APIs, but nobody can go in and actually change anything. That's another request you can make with Salesforce. And then lastly, if for some reason you and Salesforce are just, not the relationship isn't great, you can basically create backup files. And for us or a partner, we can definitely take a look at the entire data set and review it to give you, an estimate of work and what it looks like. However, but we will know in the back of our minds that we're actually going to migrate your backup files because we're not going to have enough time to migrate from the APIs to do the mapping and the testing. But we will take the Salesforce backup files, we'll convert them for HubSpot acceptance, and that's what we will use to do the migration. That's if, that's sort of a last resort, and that's sort of our backstop for any migration and when we are running up to that cutoff date. So good for you to know there. So data cleansing options. This is something that comes up quite often. How do we prep our data? We're starting a new journey and a new system. We have a bunch of bad data. We have a ton of duplicates. A bunch of reps entered, these lists into the system, and it's kind of messy. Cleaning our database. What options do we have there? So really, we typically give about 3 options. And the first is more efforts and time for you, the customer, but you can clean Salesforce on your own. You know better than us what data is not relevant anymore and what you want to leave behind. And this will have no additional costs for Trujay or anyone else, but it does create, some time that you have to set aside to do this. So that can happen pre-migration, and that's one option. The second option is you don't have much time and you want Trujay to clean it on the way over. And that's quite easy. You just tell us what the criteria is. It could be anything. It could be only data from the year 2020 to the present. It could be any data owned by a specific user. It could be any custom field that is marked a certain way. Only bring that data. We can put filters on top of filters. We can do it any which way, but just keep in mind when you ask us to do it, we do have to write some custom script for that object and then all the related objects along with it. So it actually takes a little bit more effort. And I know this is kind of strange. So if, like, let's say you had a database of 500,000 records, and by you telling us these filters, it's going to reduce your 500,000 records down to 125,000 records. And you're thinking, wow, I just reduced my database. This is going to be really cheap. It actually creates more work to have us filter on the way over. So keep that in mind because it has some customization that we have to add to the migration. And then last, and the one that we often recommend is post-migration. And I know lots of folks when they're migrating, they're really looking to have a fresh database right when it arrives into their new system. However, in HubSpot, it is so easy to clean data. I mean, it's literally a couple clicks and poof, you can move it right out. So you can put a filter on top of another filter, and we are happy to guide you through this. And this third option, post-migration, is going to be the cheapest and the least amount of time. So that's why we often recommend it. And then also, if you need deduplication, like bulk automation deduplication, we do that as part of our service, and it's something we can give you with our data management tools that we have in-house. Okay, so more best practices, please. So one thing, as I was talking about before, I really want you to review your data, especially with your users, because they're the ones who are going to tell you what data they need and what data they don't. You can go to our application and you can run an estimate, is what we call it, and you will get a full readout of your objects and record counts, and you can see what it looks like. Please bring that to the teams and say, what do we need? What do we not need? Please don't make that decision on their behalf ahead of time. Again, want to avoid partial migrations. You'll want to review the fields to remove before you show up to a mapping session or you're mapping with the wizard. It's better to just have a good idea of what fields nobody used or filled in, and what fields, were quite valuable and populated. So the more prep work you have there will make the mapping session go quicker. And sometimes you can be inside of mapping with, a partner or whoever, and you're trying to decide what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So the more prep work and the better idea you have there, the better. Pipeline consolidation, mandatory fields, automations to configure and understand is always helpful ahead of migration. So if you have a good idea of this type of design, maybe you're working with a partner on onboarding and training, you definitely want to run some of these by them so you can strategize how you're going to set it up, and you know exactly how the data will migrate to those pipelines and automations, how it will flow right in. So Trujay, again, I already touched on this. We're going to create a data backup of our own for security measures. We're happy to make a copy and give it to you so that you have one. But if you're working with another partner, make sure that you create your own data backup. And then if using the wizard, please ask ahead of time, how to use the tools. We feel like it's pretty straightforward. However, we understand you can get caught up with shipping address, billing address, and some things can get, a little bit complicated. So we have looms, we have demos, we have things that we can share with you and give you a better idea how to use those tools. And to wrap up, to sum up the video, and I can't wait to get a glass of water if you're still watching this. You want to get an estimate of your entire database. Review all objects, highlight what is a must-have versus what is a must-not migrate. Stay away from partial migrations, mess. They are doable, but they can turn into a mess. Want to avoid that. Give as much buffer as possible for overlap. You want to plan ahead, think ahead as much as you can. And consider if a resource on your side has bandwidth to clean data. Ask Trujay to do it for you, or we can guide on how to execute it quite easily and most cost effectively in HubSpot. Do a data health assessment using the Trujay application. You can do this for free. We have a data health assessment. You can go there to our application and you can click on it and you can basically run your database, and it will tell you how many duplicates you have. It will tell you which of your contacts are marketable, how many of your contacts are deliverable. So it's a pretty cool little tool. It's free. Feel free to check it out. And then the last piece is Trujay's HubSpot admin program. We've started this program this year, and this is the whole idea really is, HubSpot is a very easy, intuitive tool to use without a doubt. And the idea of getting away from having to have an admin for your system or your platform has been sort of a draw towards HubSpot. But HubSpot has matured quite a bit over these past couple of years. It's becoming more robust. There's a lot more features. And just having an admin, a constant HubSpot portal audit, data governance, checking in and seeing what automations you're not using, what campaigns or anything that could be inside of there that you're not taking advantage of. You've invested in the system. The idea is to make that system really work for you as much as possible. So we have created an admin program for you, and please reach out to me and I'm happy to provide any materials to you on that. And really it's just Trujay is keeping everything in check, letting you know what you're not using, what you could be using better, how your data is looking, just the health overall of your system, as well as just ordering requests. And you need a custom report made by tomorrow. You need these advanced workflows to be set up. All of those items are covered in the HubSpot admin program offered by Trujay. And so we're very proud of what we built there, and we would love to show you more on that if you're interested. So with that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I will talk to you all soon. Thank you.